Section 26 of Library Essays, Papers Related to the Work of Public Libraries. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Ted Leinhart. Library Essays, Papers Related to the Work of Public Libraries by Arthur Elmore Bostwick. The Library and the Businessman. The electricians have a word that has always interested me. The word and the thing it signifies. It is hysteresis, and it means that quality in a mass of iron that resists magnetization, so that if the magnetizing force is a moving one, the magnetism always lags a little behind it. We see this quality in many other places besides magnetic bodies, the almost universal tendency of efforts to lag behind their causes. I like to watch it in the popular mind, the failure to catch on quickly, the appreciation that comes just a little after the thing to be appreciated, lag everywhere in apprehension, in knowledge, and the realization of a situation. Everywhere hysteresis. Of course, sometimes the lag is great and sometimes it is slight. It may be affected by physical distance, as when the European thinks that Indians camp in the suburbs of Pittsburgh and that the citizens of Indianapolis hunt the buffalo of an evening, or it may be a function of mental distance, as when the Wall Street financier fondly imagines that this country is still populated chiefly by lambs, as it undoubtedly was 50 years ago. I like to watch it as it affects the idea of the public library as some people hold it. Now, of course, without progress, change, motion of some kind, there could be no lag. In a permanent magnet, there is no hysteresis. If the Indians and the buffalo were still with us, the European would be thinking the truth. If we had not learned that the gold brick and the green goods were frauds, we could still be fleeced. And if libraries were still what they were 50 years ago, there would be no lag in the ideas that some people hold about them. Libraries have changed. Some of you know it, and some of you do not. Libraries have changed in the kind of printed matter that they collect and preserve, and the kind of people to whom they make their appeal, in the way in which they try to make the former available to the latter. They have utterly changed in their own conception of their status in the community, of what they owe to the community, and how they ought to go about it, to pay the debt. The old library was first and foremost a collection of material for scholars. The new is for the busy citizen, to help him in what he is busy about, to make it possible for him to do more work in less time. It has taken some time for the library to see itself in this light, but it has taken the great body of our citizens still longer to recognize and act on the change. Else I should not be talking to you today about the library and the businessman. The modern library is concerned, much more largely than the old, with contemporary relations, with what is happening and what is just going to happen. It sympathizes with the men who do things. It tries to let them know what is going on about them and to assist them in what they are attempting, whether it be to achieve a worldwide peace or to devise a new non-refillable bottle. The library has placed itself in a position where it can do this better than any other institution, for it is essentially nonpartisan. Probably it is our only nonpartisan institution. Mr. Bryan's impartial government newspaper has not yet printed its first number. The school must take sides, for it deals solely with children. The library alone can store up material on all sides of every mooted question and offer it to him who reads, without in any way taking sides itself. It may run the risk of misconception. We had a big exhibit of war pictures last year. The pacifists protested. It was very dreadful, they said, to see a library encouraging the militaristic spirit. This year we have a peace exhibit prepared by the Union Against Militarism. The preparedness people are horrified. They hate to see a library siding with those who would drag our country in the dust of humiliation. The trouble with all these good people is just hysteresis, lag. It may have been 50 years ago that a portrait of a monarch in a library meant that the institution was for him, body and soul. Now it means simply that he is an interesting contemporary thing. Display of a cartoon representing Woodrow Wilson doing something disgraceful does not imply on our part detestation of the president, but only a willingness to let the public see a good bit of drawing, or perhaps to show them how some part of the community is thinking and feeling. It is all a part of our efforts at up-to-datedness, our struggles to brush off the dust and sweep away the cobwebs of medievalism. As an incident of these struggles, we have discovered the existence of the businessman. We have tried to find out what he is driving at, and to help a little, to stock the kind of information that he wants, and to help him get at it. An obstacle in the way has been the fact that much of what he wants is to be obtained best from material that the older libraries knew nothing of and would have despised had they known it, partly printed matter that had no existence in those days, like the huge trade catalog and the informative railway folder, partly material that was ignored because it had no connection with scholarly pursuits, timetables, statistical schedules, directories, lists of names and addresses, commercial publications, maps, information regarding trade routes and conditions. If the scholar of 50 years ago wanted to be set right about a Greek preposition or to find the color of Henry VII's hair, he knew where to go. The library was the proper and inevitable place for such data. He brushed the dust from a pile of books and proceeded to look them up. But if he wanted to know the quickest way to ship goods to Colombo, Ceylon, or the comparative exports of cereals from Russia during the last decade, or the design of the latest machine for effecting a given result, did he go to the library? Remember that this is supposed to be 50 years ago. I am afraid I must confess that I don't know where he went. I fear that in most cases he didn't go at all, for businessmen as well as libraries have grown in the last half-century, but I am quite sure that he went nowhere near the library. The reason was that printed information of this kind either did not then exist or was thought improper for collection by a scholarly institution. If anyone had asked for it, I know what the librarian would have said, for the same thing is occasionally still said by librarians, and I hear it at department stores and everywhere else where there is distribution of objects necessary to our lives. They would have said, "There has been no demand for it, so we don't need to keep it." Demand for it? Of course not. Is there any demand for fish in a sandbank or for free trade arguments in a stand-pat Republican newspaper? People go for things where they know the things are to be found, and they knew well 50 years ago that none of these things were to be found in a library. The sad thing is that although the libraries have reformed, hysteresis is still getting in its deadly work. There is a lag of apprehension and appreciation among our businessmen, many of whom think the library is still the same old dusty cobwebby institution of 1850. Take my word for it, it is not. It stocks all the things that the librarian used contemptuously to call biblia a biblia, books that are no books, city directories by the hundred, trade maps, commercial information, trade catalogs, advertising folders, railway announcements, hundreds of things that will answer the questions that every businessman wants, or ought to want, to know. We or any other library may not have precisely what you want. We are not yet perfect, and we have much to learn. But we are buying and putting at the businessman's disposal the kind of material that will help him in his business. The modern library is democratic, not autocratic. It does not hand you down a volume from a very high shelf and tell you that is exactly what you want, and you mustn't ask for anything else. It says, we are the agents of a cooperative concern. For convenience sake, just as in the case of the public schools, you conclude to tax yourselves to maintain a public collection of books instead of having to form private collections of your own, smaller and vastly more expensive. We are in communication with every one of you by telephone. The machine for which you have paid is all ready to work, stoked and cleaned and oiled. Why don't you press the button? Those who don't are just suffering from hysteresis, lag of apprehension. They think the library is what it was in 1850. They are behind the times. Am I not afraid that if all the businessmen should press the button at once, the library would be swamped? There would be a little swearing at first, I fear, but ultimately there would be a realization that a library built and stocked and manned to serve perhaps 50 businessmen at once cannot serve 500 or 5,000. There would be pressure on the legislature. We should have the necessary funds, and in short order, we should be serving our 5,000 as smoothly as we served our 50. Now let us get down to something concrete. Just what information are we prepared to give to business and industrial houses? Here are some actual questions asked lately and answered in our reference departments, many of them by telephone. The uses of lye and baking powder, history and development of the plow, substitute for such commercial products as dyes, sealskin, fertilizers, etc., receipts for preparing in the wholesale manner mustard and salad dressing and for bottling olives, methods of installing a refrigerating plant, addresses of the manufacturers of toys in the United States, how far from the curb may vehicles be parked in St. Louis, names of manufacturers of bottled buttermilk, dates of traffic legislation in England, names of the officers of the Wabash Railroad, how to calculate the depreciation in shop fittings and taking inventory, change in prices in Wall Street for the last year, history of speculation in the 16th century, examination of the State Board of Pharmacy relating to the laws of the state of Missouri on the sale of narcotics, pictures for advertising posters such as a Pullman Porter, hops used in a Bevo ad, two dogs playing for the title page of a piece of music entitled Puppy Love, designs for book covers, posters, letterheads by the million. I think I hear someone say, "Do you call that library work? One man at a telephone and a pile of circulars at the other end?" Yes, I do. Didn't I tell you that libraries had changed? When Archbishop Glennon first visited our new building, he walked into the magnificent central hall and, looking around him, said, "Where are the books?" The books were all in their places, but they were not in the delivery hall. The books in a library are quite as important as ever. There could be no library without them. They are the library. But we are laying more and more emphasis on the man behind the book. In 9 cases out of 10, he is a woman, and increasingly often he is at the end of a telephone wire. We find that information slips over a telephone wire quite easily. It saves the businessman an annoying trip, and sometimes it saves our assistant from hearing all about the businessman's last attack of sciatica. Not always, for sufferers have been known to seek sympathy even by telephone. The more they do it, the more trunk lines we have to pay for, so the telephone company doesn't mind. But it is true that in meeting the businessman's needs, the library is assimilating itself more and more to a huge information bureau. This is the case especially at our municipal reference branch in the City Hall, where we have few books, properly so called, many reports, pamphlets and clippings, properly indexed, and a great deal of manuscript material, gathered by correspondence in answer to queries and waiting for more queries on the same subject. It matters little whether what you want is bound between covers or slipped into a pamphlet case or slipped into a manila envelope. It really matters little whether it is printed at all, so long as it is indexed so that it can be found quickly. We may perhaps look forward to the day when all the bound books in the library will be for home use and will give information at second hand, too late for the businessman to act promptly on it. The real sources of up-to-date knowledge will be, as they often are now, manuscript letters, circulars, newspaper clippings, and trade catalogs. With their inevitable index, they form a huge encyclopedia, absolutely up-to-date. The printed encyclopedia in umpty 7 volumes is lucky if it catches up with year before last. It may do for your private library where the skillful agent has induced you to put it, but is worthless in the businessman's collection, except on the rare occasions when he wants the life of Epictetus or the location of the Dobruja. For the businessman, we want this morning's material. Shall we deny it, collectively, the name of a library just because the bookbinder has not been at work on it and in many cases will never get the chance? Not that the businessman may not read books if he wants them, books on commerce, the industries, transportation, salesmanship, advertising, accounting. He may have them sent to his home if he likes, with no more trouble than sitting down again to his telephone. We use Uncle Sam's messenger service, his parcel post. The only annoying thing about it is that he will not deliver COD, and we are accordingly forced to ask for a postage deposit in advance. Anything you choose, from the postage on one book one way to several dollars. We will notify you when the money is used up. This combination of telephone and parcel post seems to me the ideal of library service when you can name the book you want and don't care to be merely browsing along the shelves. If the book is out, you will be put on the waiting list and will get it automatically when your turn comes. Why does not every citizen of St. Louis avail himself of this easy service? Hystericists, I suppose, thinking of the old library of 1850 and neglecting that of 1917. Or perhaps it is that provoking little advance payment. Pay beforehand may be a poor paymaster, but those who work with Uncle Sam have to make his acquaintance. So much for the information to be obtained from the library by businessmen. You are advertising men. Your business is the dissemination of information. Your boast is that it is your business to tell the truth, and I believe it. How can the library help you tell it? Well, I believe the library to be the greatest publicity field in the world, largely a virgin field, for you men, like everybody else, have got the hysteresis. You are suffering from brain lag, not brain fag. You think the library is back where it was in 1850, when it was the last place in the world where any sane man would go for publicity. It was a good place to hide. They tell the story of a library in Philadelphia, a beautiful old mausoleum, where an escaped criminal once stayed in its public reading room for 3 days before the police found him. We don't covet that reputation. The modern library, I repeat, is the very best publicity field in the world. First, as we have seen, it is absolutely nonpartisan. If you get your publicity material into the library, it is because the library thinks it is good for something, not because you have some kind of a pull. Next, the people who frequent the library are intelligent. Publicity there is like that obtained from a high-class periodical. It is gilt-edged. Last and not least, the publicity given by the library is incidental. It accepts your publicity material and makes it available, not because it wants to boom your product at the expense of some other, but because it thinks that your material contains something of value to the businessman. In most cases, its publicity is general, not specific. You know that splendid Eastman ad, "There's a photographer in your town"? That makes a thrill run down my spine whenever I see it, just as Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony does, or Homer's description of Ulysses fighting the Cyclops. And for the same reason, it is a product of genius. Advertising is more and more bending this way. Why couldn't we have seen it before? For the same reason that we can't all write plays like Shakespeare's or compose Wagner's operas. When two shoemakers, Smith and Jones, had little shops opposite each other, Smith's chief idea of advertising was to tell what trash Jones was making, and Jones to assure people that nothing good could come out of Smith's store. What was the result? The same that induced the darky to say after he had heard the political orators, "If both these fellas tells the truth, what a pair of rascals they must be." The net effect was to put people's minds on the worthlessness of the product instead of its excellence. Nowadays, Smith and Jones are getting together, even if they haven't been gobbled up by the trust, and are assuring people that shoes are good things to have, that we ought to wear more of them, more kinds, and better quality. The result is to fix the public mind on the excellence of shoes, and both Smith and Jones sell more of them than under the old method. The library is willing to boom shoes for you, and labor-saving machinery and food products, and textiles and seeds and lighting and heating devices. It does this to some extent without your cooperation, by the books that it places on the shelves. But no one who knows will go to a book for up-to-date information of this sort. If you want a description of the very latest device for any purpose, go to the publicity material of the concern that makes it. We trust to you, admin, and your campaign for truth in advertising that it is no fake. Here is where you can help us and help your clients by so doing. We stock every bit of good, informative publicity that we can find. We miss much of it. You can help us get it all. Your clients will get more publicity and better publicity for nothing than they have often bought for hundreds of dollars. Perhaps it is another effect of hysteresis that makes us afraid of anything that is offered free. You remember the story of the man who all day long, on a bet, offered sovereigns unsuccessfully in exchange for shillings on London Bridge. If we were allowed to charge for our privileges, I believe we could turn ourselves into a money-making institution on this count of publicity alone. I believe that it would be profitable for publishers to pay us for putting their books on our shelves. If we charged for the space we are giving to trade catalogs, circulars, and other publicity material, the issuers, I am sure, would not wait for us to ask for what they print. We have been trying for several years to get framed pictures of St. Louis industries to hang in our business and industrial room. If we had asked $50 per for the privilege of using space on the walls of a public institution, I am sure we could have had it. But since we offer that space absolutely free of charge, a sovereign for a shilling, we can't get what we want. This is special publicity too, not general. There are some other cases where something about a piece of special publicity makes it so valuable to us that we display it, letting the advertiser get his advantage as a side issue. Within the last few years, we have put up boldly in our art room big glaring poster ads of beer, cigars, and breakfast foods. How much could one of you have extorted from an advertiser if you had made him believe that you had some kind of a pull that would enable you to placard his wares not on Smith's fence or Jones' barn, but actually on the inside of the St. Louis Public Library? Now, these posters were displayed, of course, not as inducements to smoke Fatimas or to drink Satanet, but because they were good and interesting commercial art. We believe that more people see the art on the fences than that in the art museum, and we want to do our part toward making it good. It has made great strides of late, as I think you will acknowledge. But answer me this, was not that valuable publicity for these products? Will not the knowledge that similar publicity may await the manufacturer who gets out a good poster work out to the advantage of all concerned? You know those articles in System, of course, telling what the writer would do if he were an undertaker or a druggist or a farmer? Well, if I were an ad man, I would get up an exhibition of St. Louis-made commercial art, advertising St. Louis products, and offer it to the public library. We will display it, our only condition in each case being that it is artistically worth display. Your clients will have their products advertised gratis in a place where space could not be bought for $1 million a square foot. You will gain in reputation as a man who puts over big things. We shall get an interesting display of commercial art, and better than all else, an impulse will have been given toward improved quality in the poster art of St. Louis. This is only one instance of the fact, which I believe to be a fact, that there is almost no kind of advertising that cannot be done in a live, modern public library, if one only goes the right way about it. Many go about it quite the wrong way and do not succeed. We do not assist Mrs. Smith to get piano pupils by placing on our bulletin boards a scrawled announcement. We are not willing to distribute by the million small dodgers announcing that Jones' clothes wringers are the best. We do not allow Robinson to lecture in one of our assembly rooms in order to form a class in divine healing from which he and he alone will profit. Publicity furnished by us must be incidental, as I have said, or it must be general, but I believe it to be all the more effective for this, and I invite your attempts to make more frequent and better use of it in such ways as I have suggested. Study the business and industrial material in our applied science room, or the commercial art material in our art room. Examine the collection of travel folders on display in our delivery hall. See our bulletin of daily attractions in St. Louis, entered months ahead when we can get the information, and see whether you do not agree with me. Now let me remind you that you are paying for all this service, whether you make use of it or not. You are members of the best club in St. Louis. I don't mean the Advertising Men's Club, good as it is. I mean the Library Club. The tax gatherer collects the dues. If you are not a taxpayer, you pay just the same, the burden being passed along to you in some of the many ways familiar to economists. The dues amount to about 3 cents a month for each inhabitant of St. Louis. Not excessive. The club has the finest clubhouse in the city, the most comfortable reading and study rooms, the finest and most useful books, the most intelligent and helpful attendants. You may have to belong to other clubs that you do not use. This, at least, it would be folly to neglect. End of section 26.